I disagree. I disagree with both those options. Actually, here's what I'll say.
Why are you
I'll
saying
say it right away.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Targeting Podcast.
Yes, sir.
Boys, how we doing this week?
Doing wonderful.
Glad to hear.
Doing great, man. I'm doing great myself, but I have to say, some pretty tragic news in the sports world, especially the basketball world. Terrence Clark played at Kentucky, but even beyond that, just a great kid, 19-year-old kid, tragically passed away in a car accident. I don't even know what words to even say because it's just so horrible. Really, really terrible news. Fortunately, they do have a memorial out here at on campus here at UK, but oh my God, just about to get his chance at the league. It was definitely going to be a draft pick. He just signed with an agent. He declared for the draft, was going to go in the first 2 rounds for sure. Oh man, really, really tragic stuff. You absolutely hate to see that. 19 years old.
Can Voodoo John take it away?
Boston native too, and I saw a lot of people post. A lot of people got pictures with him. Like that dude was not shying away from people. Like a lot of people had images. I know Justin, you met him briefly, so I mean,
I did actually at a Panda Express.
He was our age, Jerry. He was our age.
Yeah, 19, very young, and just sad. Dude, prayers out to him and his family. Justin, do you know if what was the environment like on campus when?
So it hasn't been all that different today, but they did set up a memorial with like a picture of him and like some flowers and stuff, and left room on the sidewalk there for everybody else to put flowers and stuff like that and cards and whatnot. But which I'm glad to see that. But yeah, definitely. You said though, a lot of NBA players knew him personally. He was just a super. Everybody says that the way he just lit up a room when he went into it. I mean, he's just a great kid that's gone way too soon. So terrible news there. But
let me just
we can move on.
Just real quickly say it's terrible. It's saddening. There's not many words you can use for it, but the only thing you can take away from it is you just, honestly, you got to have no regrets in life. You just got to live your life, live each day as if it's your last. And honestly, the impression he left, it goes without saying.
Yeah.
You lit up a room, again, not saying I want to, but if I had to go today, that's the last thing I would want someone to say is I lit up the room, something, you always want a good impression when you end it, and he had it, he saw it. So.
Well said.
Yeah. May he rest in paradise.
Yep. Prayers go out to him and his family. And we'll get started on that note.
I like that. Rest in paradise. I like that. No more peace shit. I like that. Paradise.
And we'll start with player of the week. So, John, do you want to go with your player of the week first? We'll go with John.
I'll kick it off with Kemba Walker on the big win against the Suns. And I'm going to use him because, again, I don't see him have these types of nights all the time. He's just a little more inconsistent with his age. And, you obviously got to shuffle the ball around with JT and JB. But I like it when Kemba steps up there as the veteran guy leading the team. And even when they get a win, even though it was a somewhat low-scoring game, I like when you get a win against a big Suns team that's second in the West, I think, still. And we just need these wins. We need these wins against those Western teams because it'll hurt us, but we can get those teams, those wins, that'll help us in the end because the bigger games are coming up against the Eastern teams. And I mean, we got those, obviously, we got one going on right now and it ain't looking too good. I'm looking at the score. It's 94-79 with 10 minutes left. And they just keep pulling away the next.
One of the best wins of the year for sure for the Celtics and Kemba, that tied his season high at 32 there. And like you said, I mean, that's just a huge win. Winning against one of the better teams and one of the best teams in the league. We're 0-3 against Philly. We're 0-3 against Brooklyn. We're 0-2 against the Jazz. We don't win those big games that we need to, and that was a huge win for sure in blowout fashion, to say the least. So yeah. Huge win.
Yeah. I think it's good to see the Celtics winning again. And I think guys like Kemba are gonna need to step up if we want to continue that. So yeah. Yeah, I agree. Good player of the week, John. I'll go with mine. Mine was Bradley Beal. We give him credit on this podcast, but I don't think he gets enough credit in the NBA world, the NBA community. The man hasn't been putting up 40, but people sleep on the fact that he's still averaging 31 points a game. He's averaged 30 his last 10, like almost 30, like 29.5. And the man's still balling out, but I think I think it's 50-50. One side of it is, he's not putting up 40, so it's kind of like, the heat's kind of dialed down. And I think Russell Westbrook is playing a little better. So I don't think he's getting a lot of the attention just because Russ is playing the way he's playing.
They're connecting out there.
Yeah. So, but nonetheless, Bradley Beal is a guy that, is going to make your team better, and he's playing great. And the Wizards right now are sitting at 10, and normally we wouldn't care about that, but that's going to be big for come playoff time. So it's interesting. But,
definitely. I mean, they've won 6 in a row now, and like you just said, for the first time all year, they have gotten into that 10 spot, which means they'd be sitting in the play-in tournament. That's the first time they've reached 10 all year. They've been 11 to 15 the whole year, so that is huge for them. And like you said, Beal is still balling, but having Russ actually playing up to his caliber, and Russell Westbrook actually averaging 22, 11, and 11 this year on the whole season. That is remarkable. It seems like it's so crazy. That's the quietest stat line you'll ever hear. But, I mean, that's incredible. He's averaging that type of triple-double, and he is playing really well now, and the Wizards looking much better. They're getting more healthy. They're starting to look much better. I would not want to play them in the play-in tournament. I'll say that.
What I will say is now you're getting a team that has momentum. You got 6 games. You really have nothing to lose necessarily because, you had a shit season to beginning off with. You're finishing strong. You got, I was just looking at their schedule. You got 4 big games that if you win half of those, because they're against teams that you would never expect them to beat. The Bucks, they got the Hawks twice, and they got the Lakers. Those are teams that, are going to, in your mind, when you, again, watch that and look at those, those numbers, are going to probably beat them. If they win half those are 2 games that automatically bring those Hawks down. I'm just going to say the Hawks are probably the more beatable of those 4 teams. Bring the Hawks down, bring the Wizards up. And again, like you said, that's a play-in team. Russ's stat line, honestly, surprising me. Again, I'm not a big Russ guy. And this whole season, it was a little bit of a letdown with him, scoring so much and not really producing with the team. But now I can't argue with results. 6 wins in a row. Going on 7, it looks like, as the game is playing tonight. You can't argue with the facts. You can't argue with the numbers. And I think we finally got what we hoped for with Russ and Bradley Beal connecting and the Wizards team finally shaping together. So,
do you guys think that the Wizards can, if they get that play-in spot, can make a serious run at it?
So I think that they could win the play-in tournament and get an 8 seed, even if they finish as a 10 seed. I think they could steal that 8 seed. However, if you really look at the Eastern Conference playoffs, it is a crazy, crazy year because it feels like 3 of the 4 first-round matchups in the East are locks. No matter who ends up, unless the Celtics end up, I feel like the Celtics and Hawks will end up as the 4-5 matchup, which will be a crazy competitive series. And we can talk about that later. But the 1, 2, and 3 teams being Philly, Milwaukee, and Brooklyn, they're not going to lose those first-round series. None of those 3 teams are. So even if, no matter if it's the Hornets or the Knicks or the Wizards or whoever it is that steals those 7 and 8 seeds and that 6 seed, it feels like those 3 matchups are going to be locks, which sucks. But I mean, it'll still be competitive basketball. However, all that being said, I think if anybody could, Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal, with the potential that Beal has to drop 60 at any moment, I mean, that team is scary. I would not want to play them, especially in the play-in tournament where it's single elimination, or even in a 7-game series. Even if I am one of those top 3 seeds, that's a dangerous series.
I'll say right now, off the mark, let's just assume they snag that 8 seed. They'll probably be playing the 76ers, assuming nothing changes. But again, that's up for debate actually, because the Nets and them are actually tied up right now. But I'm just going to assume 76ers don't move a muscle. Nets are going to just be the Nets.
Mm-hmm.
Either team, honestly, I'll go with either team. Again, it's a lock when you look at it on paper. Those teams are phenomenal. But again, you just can't not look at the Wizards and see that there is talent on that team just because the team wasn't producing over the whole regular season. It's a Clippers situation in my head. You have this perfect team, right? Specifically with the Nets in my mind, but you have a perfect team, right? Here come the Wizards if they make that 8 seed. Really any team, but the Wizards are one of those that are super underdogs here. If they end up playing the Nets, now I'm putting my money on the Nets, and I'm not saying that I think there's a high chance of the Wizards beating the Nets, but it's the teams that get overconfident. It's the teams that are riddled with the injuries like we got right now with the Nets, and none of the guys are playing consistently, and they're all over the place, and they look like a Clippers team with 60 guys coming off the bench balancing all the time. And it works in the regular season. And I'm not saying it wouldn't work here. The Nets look like the fantasy team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, everything. But you just got to remember that sometimes those perfect regular season all-star teams don't always fit well and mesh well in the playoff time, because playoff time is so different.
Yeah.
And Bradley Beal has not been there that many times, but he's had some series. Russ has had those series. These guys know that. They're meshing now, and those are guys that got nothing to lose at this point, so they'll go in playing like that. Plus, Russ knows KD and Kyrie basketball. They know Harden basketball, so that's a plus on that side. They at least know the game if they end up playing them. I don't think there's a heavy chance, but I just think you got to remember that, like, the same thing we said about the Jazz and the Suns. These are teams that they got so many good lineups. They got a good system going, but regular season teams don't always do well in the playoffs. It's just, especially in the NBA, you see that sometimes.
Yeah. Here's what I'll say on it, and then we'll wrap up, and we got to hear Justin's player of the week. I think, first of all, kudos to the Wizards if they end up getting in this playoff tournament, play-in tournament, sorry. Because I remember just a couple of episodes ago, if you guys were watching, you know, but if you're not, go watch those episodes.
Stop right now. Go and watch that one, then come back.
We were talking about where, like, the Wizards are in trouble. Like, why doesn't Bradley Beal want out? Like, this team is like bottom of the East. And for the fact that they're like at the 10 seed right now is pretty remarkable. I think they will win that play-in tournament. I don't think they have a shot of getting any farther. And I think that goes for, like Justin was kind of saying, any team that wins that play-in tournament. I don't think any team that gets through that play-in tournament is going to reasonably, because the disparity from the 1 to like that 10 is huge. That margin is huge. It feels like in the West, it's a little bit tighter. Like
I definitely agree with that.
As it goes down, it's kind of like a tight, like it's not, maybe the records don't show it, but it's definitely like skill wise. Talent, skill, the relatively same. 1 through 4 and 5 through 8 or 5 through 10, completely different. And so I think even if the Wizards do get past in this play-in tournament, considering that they get in, I still think kind of what Justin was saying and John was saying, I don't think they get past Bucks, Sixers, whoever they face. But yeah, let's Justin, who was your player of the week?
My player of the week was somebody that has earned to be player of the week probably the past 3 straight weeks, but finally I'm coming around to giving it to him. And there's no reason I didn't give it to him before, but it's about time that Steph Curry gets one. And I mean, if you have any idea about the NBA right now, if you're watching this podcast, you obviously do. So clearly Stephen Curry is just taking over the league right now. And not to steal Terrence Ross's nickname, but he has been a human torch. And there's no other way to put it. This guy is literally just roasted. He's red hot. This is one of the best stretches that we've ever seen in NBA history ever. The next best I could think of would be Harden a few years ago, where he had 30 plus for 32 straight games the entire month of January. That was absurd, and that was probably better than this run. But even so, you can't. There's no sense in comparing that when you're witnessing greatness right now, because Steph Curry is going ridiculously nuts. He averaged 38, 6, and 6 on this week, but it's been all month. He's been averaging 40 points. I mean, he is knocking down 10 threes a night easily. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. And my best advice to any NBA fans out there is just don't take this man for granted. Do not take his greatness for granted, because there is no guarantee that this will continue. Even tomorrow, who knows? He goes down with an injury. It's just, this type of play is just remarkable, and he has been ridiculously good.
It's really crazy how good he is. I think so. When we faced him, Celtics played the Warriors.
That was this week. That was this week. So he had 47.
2 or 3 games ago.
So I was watching that game, and it was remarkable because I think so. We got up, and then Curry just comes down like corner. Do you remember that play? Comes down corner and hucks it up, and then it's all of a sudden a game again. Like the Celtics were like, "Oh, game over. Like it's fine." And then he all of a sudden made it like a one possession game again, I believe. So this man is just crazy. Quite honestly, he deserves Player of the Week every week, but we can't give it to him.
Exactly, he does.
But the man just can't be stopped. He's an automatic bucket. Even when he's not, which I respect about his game, even when he's not putting up, like when he's missing shots, he still seems to put up a decent amount of points. And it's just unfortunate that he's on a team that can't really help him. But yeah, I mean, he's still.
You got to also remember the Warriors are sitting at 10 seed as well. Playing into, they're almost in a playoff picture as well. They're not. They're close to an 8 seed with the other teams. Another thing I want to bring up, not to go off of Steph, obviously, but it's just something that I don't know how none of us mentioned it, and I'm just disappointed in all of us. But the Wizards are not the team with the longest streak right now.
Longest.
The Knicks. I wish we'll talk about the Knicks.
Knicks. I know.
We will definitely get into that.
The Knicks are at a 8-winning streak, and let me just say, Knicks are our last game. We're also going to get into the Celtics because we do have a couple big games coming up, obviously, in the future that are in these standings here. That if we lose them, that'll definitely hurt and help those teams. But the Knicks are the one team that I feel like we just got to beat because that just shows if we can play against that talent. They're a team that, although they're a 4 seed and they're close with us, just are been playing unbelievable. We just
we will definitely talk about the Knicks. Do not worry about that. Just to go back real quick. I have a question. So you mentioned that we were just talking about Steph, and like he's literally taking this lottery team. He is literally putting a lottery team on his back and taking them to most likely, hopefully, knock on wood, a play-in appearance, if not a playoff appearance. Yeah. But I mean, can this man win MVP? What do you guys like? Do you think he has a legit chance at MVP? And I will say that at the moment, he has if you look at the actual like percentage chances of who's going to win MVP and stuff, Steph Curry is at 0. So the league does not think he has a chance at it. And looking at like as a fan watching the game, I don't understand how he couldn't be. You're talking about the award is called the most valuable player. There is no person in the entire league that is more valuable to their team than Stephen Curry. I know I don't even want to hear about. I honestly would say more so than LeBron at this moment, the way he is playing. This guy is the most valuable player, no doubt in my mind, and it's crazy to me that he's not even on the leaderboard.
Let me just say something, and then John, it's the most valuable player on the most valuable team. John, go ahead.
Thank you.
I mean, that's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah, let me just say, if it was the most underrated player, I don't even know what you would call it. The underdog. Like that's like a Damian. I honestly, in the future, if they name it, I would call it the Damian Lillard Award. Because that's how Steph is playing right now. He's playing like a Damian Lillard. Okay? No,
he's playing better than Dame.
Well, no. Stop. Again, you're gonna take my words a different meaning. I mean, he's playing the way that he puts the team on his back and he leads the team all on his own at that point. Not that the skill, very different right now, but just the notion of putting the team on your back.
Fair.
So another thing, Justin, you got to forget is we got Jokic, we got Embiid, we got Giannis, we have, God knows who else. I think James Harden's in the picture as well.
Those are the top 3. It's Jokic, Embiid, Giannis right now is 1, 2, 3.
And then obviously I think Harden's sitting at 4, somewhere in there.
Oh yeah, he's been out for a while now, though.
But he's been out. But let me just say, Justin, MVP, Steph deserves MVP every season. He always has a great season. He always plays phenomenal basketball. He always has a little slumps here and there, but he always picks it up and he always brings the team in. And he's just a guy that plays great basketball year in, year out. But again, the way Jerry said it, most valuable player on the most valuable team. You don't see MVP going to Bradley Beal. Unfortunately, if you could give it to Bradley Beal, if you could give it to Russell Westbrook, you would give it to them because the way that they put up the triple doubles, the way they put up the 60-point games, you would like, who wouldn't want to give it to Bradley Beal? We wanted to give Bradley Beal an all-star and he just made it. He just made that. Because again, the NBA works on a team and player basis. If the team sucks and the player is good, that means nothing. That does nothing for you. They want a player who works well in the.
So here's why I feel differently about this than Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal's crazy numbers are incredible, but the way Stephen Curry is doing it, Bradley Beal never made a playoff appearance on his own, even though he was putting up those crazy numbers. And I'm not saying Steph Curry is there yet either. And I'm not saying, and this is a different year where he didn't have to reach the 8 seed; he has to only reach the 10 seed. Right. So I understand that that's different, but he is now overtaken Bradley Beal and leads the league in points per game at 31.5, and Beal's at 31. He leads the league in points per game and is shooting the ball more efficiently than he did in his unanimous MVP season in 2016 or 15 or 16, 15 or 16, but where he was 50, 40, 90. He's more efficient than that now on a team where he is the most swarmed, the most covered guy in the entire league, without a doubt. The defense he faces, no other player in the entire league sees.
Yeah, he gets. Yeah.
I don't know what makes it. Why is this any different? I get that they were a 1 seed that year. I get that they're winning way more, but this is a lottery team that he's going to backpack to a playoff appearance, shooting 50, 40, 90, averaging 31.5, getting tripled from the first minute of the game to the 48th, and winning basketball games. I don't understand how anybody could possibly do
Justin,
more than that.
Let me just say.
Go ahead, John.
I was just going to say, Justin, I see your points. You have convinced me, right? I think he should be in that playoff picture. I mean, that playoff picture and that MVP picture. By the way, the style of the game, the things that he brings to the court that aren't just, skill-wise. I agree with you. But I'm also just telling you, by definition, how the NBA looks at this. And unfortunately, the NBA looks at this in a very, very conservative way. They don't look at this as open to anybody who has a phenomenal season, because there are a lot of guys that honestly should be in that MVP picture that aren't even close to it because of the caliber of basketball that the NBA holds for that team to have to reach. And unfortunately, I disagree with it. It's the same thing with the All-Star game. I think the NBA is one of those leagues that does it a little differently than some leagues. I mean, again, you can see Connor McDavid winning, that MVP, or not the MVP, but God, I'm going to forget the trophy off the top of my head. And he could be on a losing team. You know what I mean? The NHL works a little differently. All these leagues work a little differently. And unfortunately, I dislike how the NBA works because it just, I agree with you. He is having an unbelievable season. And I'm sure many people that are watching the pod, many people who maybe don't follow the Warriors basketball as much as you do, Justin, and us, don't realize, because they just see the losses and the wins. They don't see Steph Curry on the game center box score, and they don't see those points there. And unfortunately, that's where you have to go. And the NBA doesn't dig that deep sometimes. The NBA just looks at what are the top scorers week in, week out on ESPN, and what's the team that has that highest record. That's what I think. I disagree with it. So I'm on your side here, but it's just.
What do you think, Jared?
You make a great point. You make a great case, as always. It's hard to. It's just like you want to overlook the wins because it seems so like petty, like that someone could like, you know what I mean? Like it's just like, oh well, just because this team has more wins means we're gonna look at a completely different list of players than we would if it was just about basically how good the player was. Seems petty, but unfortunately, I think that's just how the league is structured.
I don't think it'll change. That's my opinion. I don't think
it's not going to change. The whole thought process on the league is probably if he was really, really that good, then he would be leading them to a higher seed, and that's how they view it. And I know it's not something that you would like to see, but at the end of the day, that's what they're thinking. Also, Bradley Beal technically is in a scenario where he will lead his team to the playoffs. So in this,
you got to look at efficiency as well. But
I know, I agreed, but I'm just pointing that out. Do I think he deserves MVP? Yeah, the man just plays unbelievable almost every single night. Even if he
obviously definitely deserves first team or second team for sure.
Oh yeah. His off night is better than a lot of people's career nights. But I just think
that's a great way to put it.
Since it's only a 10 seed, like even if he got his team, and I know it's different this year because the West is very competitive, so is the East. I still think that if he got I don't think he would need a 1 seed, but if he got him to like 5 or 4, I think it would be less than 0%. It would be some consideration.
Yeah.
I also think this is a special year in the sense that, and you guys might not agree with me at this point, but I think the league's also trying to give more love to the bigs. The bigs are playing well, don't get me wrong. But
tell me how many bigs right now are in the MVP. They're all
Jokic and Embiid.
It's Jokic and Embiid.
I mean, and they're going to be 1 and 2. One of them is going to win it. I agree with you, Jerry. I'm not taking anything away from him either, especially Jokic. I mean, Embiid too. They're both playing ridiculous. They're having incredible seasons, and Embiid has got the 1 seed. I would rather, honestly, I don't know. Actually, I'm not going to say I'd rather see Embiid get, just because they are the 1 seed, and that would prove to me that it really is wins. That is why the Steph Curry can't have a chance. But Jokic is, I mean, now they don't have Jamal. I'm not taking anything away from them. There's nothing I could possibly say negative about them because they're both playing incredible.
Sorry, Jamal just got the surgery. Just an update for everybody.
I did see that. Yeah.
Right.
So I mean, I get it. You can't just give it to. He's the 10 seed right now, and those guys are going to be home court advantage.
But Jerry, let me
go ahead, John.
I was just going to say, here's my thing. Again, I think I'm just going to mention a stat that we brought up before. I'm going to get it a little wrong off the top of my head, but remember, what is it? Out of this decade now, right? So in the 90s, early thousands, there were 20 guys shooting at whatever level I think we said. Now there's 40, going on probably 50 soon. I mean, each year it just increases substantially, exponentially, and I think that's another thing that we have to take into account is the league is changing. Not saying in a bad way, but the league is changing. It's literally getting to a point where every team has at least 2 or 3 star players on their team because the caliber of basketball is just so good.
Agreed. Justin, I was going to ask you, has the NBA not proved to you yet that it is about wins? Because to me, they have.
I mean, if it was about the best player on the best team every
year, on the best team,
LeBron would have 12 MVPs, and he doesn't. So there's every single year it's something different. They get tired of giving it to the same people. That's a fact. Giannis won't win it again this year because he's won it the last 2. Steph Curry's already won 2. LeBron has 4 total. LeBron should have 12. I mean, they don't. There's different criteria every year, and
they like to balance it. They like to give it to the big man, the big shooter. They like to just mess it up and mix it around.
I don't know. I don't like.
I mean, this feels like the year that Kobe had averaged 36 and Steve Nash won MVP, averaging 15 and 11 or something. Year. And I'm not trying to take anything away from that either. And I'm not trying to compare a 15 and 11 stat line to Jokic's 28, 9 and 9, whatever he's averaged. I mean, and Embiid doing the same. So, like you said, I get it. I understand that he can't win MVP this year, and it's just my only advice to NBA fans out there is just watch the Golden State Warriors. Watch the Golden State Warriors. 10 o'clock game comes on. It's late. Whatever. Watch it. Watch them because this is a special season. This is a special player. And 10 years from now, there won't be a Steph Curry in the league to watch. So just want to look back knowing you took advantage of the time where the greatest shooter of all time.
You don't think there'll be Steph Curry?
And nobody will ever catch him. You don't think there'll be? You think somebody else will be able to have his talents?
I think
I don't think we'll ever see another guy like Steph.
Here's what I'll say.
Will work to it.
I think the league
Curry wasn't like this from the beginning.
I just think the league is changing so much that Justin's right. You won't see a Steph Curry. You won't see a player with all the same skill sets, all the same caliber, characteristics, everything. But you will see in the future a player who is similar to Curry and has better aspects here and there, but it's never going to be exactly identical, and that's just because the league changes and these players have to adapt. I mean, we talked about it. Big men now are guys who can start shooting from 3 at this point. That's never been seen before over the course of such a long time.
All right,
go ahead. No,
I can name 2 other people right now that I think are like Curry
in the league.
Go ahead, Dame and Trae Young. Is that it?
No, Harden and Klay Thompson.
I disagree with both those options. Actually, here's what I'll say.
Why are you saying?
I'll say it right away. Be honest. No. I say right away. I'm going to probably speak for James Harden. I think is a totally different player than Steph Curry. First of all, I don't think he has the same attitude. I don't think he has the same motivative skills. I don't think he has the same leadership capabilities as Steph Curry, in my opinion. Second
No.
of all, Klay Thompson, I think you're a little closer there with Klay Thompson, but I still think you're a little far off. I personally would equate, and Justin, now I'm not saying, again, I'm just going to throw a player up there just to come back at Jerry, but I still think that's very far off. I think Damian Lillard is closer to Steph Curry than the two guys you just named, in my personal opinion.
What are we talking about? Are we talking about ability, like shooting ability?
Because, no,
you're trying to. I'm saying you think Steph Curry. I would say Steph Curry and Klay Thompson don't play anything alike.
Not play.
Klay Thompson.
Shooting ability. We're talking about everything.
Shooting ability.
Okay, thanks for specifying it. Specify that next time, please. Thank you.
Even so, I would not say James Harden is like Steph Curry shooting wise. The way James Harden is a scorer, not a shooter, and he gets most of his points at the line. He's a master of drawing contact. He's become probably the most masterful contact artist in the league. The way he draws fouls, he takes advantage of the refs every single night, and he doesn't shoot from unlimited range. I would say that Damian Lillard. I agree with John there. I would say Damian Lillard, as far as shooting wise, is the only other player I would put in the same realm. Trae Young would be the next guy, but I would not say Harden and Klay are the same shooting wise as Steph because they aren't pulling from 40 feet regularly. Klay shoots with his toes on the line, and he's lights out from there. But it's not like he's pulling from 40 feet. And he shoots from behind. And Harden, it's not like Harden's pulling up from just inside half court either. The only other guy that does that is Dame, and also, sometimes Trae.
Justin brings up a good point too. Harden does get just way more physical than Steph does, trying to call the fouls, trying to get in the paint, stepping back. He calls too many. And Jerry, I see what you're trying to say here with the shooting ability, but you can't just say, oh, because James Harden is a good shooter and because Klay Thompson is a good shooter, then he's the same as Steph Curry because he's a good shooter.
Well, yeah. What's your side of it? What do you think?
Yeah, is that what you're
saying? Why did you bring them up? Why did you bring them up?
Because you can look at the numbers and clearly see that James Harden and Steph Curry probably were averaging a close amount when they were playing in certain years.
What I thought Justin meant was we will never see a guy in the league again.
Okay.
Like Steph Curry in terms of shooting ability, which I disagree with. I think the game is stretching outwards. And I think Clay's been injured, but bring back to when Klay was not injured. Okay. He was a lights out shooter. You can't admit that. You can't say he was not. And Harden, I agree. He draws a lot of fouls, but if you see Harden play on the perimeter, he's also lights out. He doesn't miss one. So
I agree.
Off of shooting ability, to me, that's comparable. If you're talking about players, sure, I'll agree. Damian Lillard and Trae Young. Besides that, we may never see a player like Steph Curry again. But in terms of shooting ability, I think this is the first of many.
So here's my rebuttal to that is shooting ability has to do with efficiency and volume.
I agree.
Steph Curry, he has had over 20 10+ three-point made games. Over 20. The next closest is Klay at 5, and then the next best there are a couple players tied at 3. Zach LaVine, Dame, tied at Harden, I think, is also tied at 3. Steph is over 20. No one has ever come close to him in history. That is what I'm talking about. The volume and efficiency that Steph shoots at, no one will ever be like that. That's
Jerry,
my
I think the distinction here is I took it as Justin meant player, and when I hear player, I encompass everything that player brings to the table: the efficiency, the volume, the skill set, the leadership capabilities, the competitiveness.
That's not what I was talking about. Yeah,
I know.
But I see what you're saying, Jerry, and I
do see what you're saying, Jerry. I agree with you. You put these guys at the line, sure, you're going to see a hell of a lot of people in the future who can step up to the line like those guys did and knock down the threes and have the same shooting percentages, maybe even better with the way the league is progressing and the way basketball is just being so fucking dominant. I mean, literally, look at these young guys that are scoring like literally they're playing like Wayne Gretzky did when he was in a junior fucking league. I mean, not to compare to hockey, but like they're playing like Wilt Chamberlain in their high school and college careers. But basically, I see your point. When you step up to the line and you have a situation like that, yes. But I also see...
Yeah, I know. I'm not denying his ability. And
Oh, no, I know. I see both your sides here.
efficiency and volume are.
And also, Justin's just sounded so fucking smart there. He sounded like a professor. I felt like I was in class. I was sitting down. I was taking notes. This guy sat up there, had this whole little lecture, had a little basketball experiment. I was just taken away.
I agree.
Sorry.
Efficiency and volume is the name of the game. And I agree that Steph Curry is leaps and bounds. You can see it without even mentioning stats. Thank you for mentioning stats, but I can see it without mentioning stats. But
no, I agree with that.
I think my point that I'm trying to make is I think we're at a pinnacle of basketball where we're going to see it shift. And right now I realize he is unmatched, but I think it's just a matter of time before somebody matches him.
I hope so. I really do. I really do hope so. And we can move on. We can move on because we've been talking about him for a while, and he deserves it because we have gone a couple episodes without talking about him. And as you said, he could be player of the week every week. But the way he just effortlessly drops 10 threes in on a nightly basis is impossible.
I agree.
It is.
It's
something crazy.
Something we haven't seen. I just think that we're reaching kind of a pinnacle here, and I think it will evolve. But I mean,
yeah. Well, we can talk about the Knicks now that you already mentioned it a little bit, John. But the Knicks have won 8 in a row, and New York Knicks basketball is back. The Mecca, they're playing unbelievable. I did get to watch almost a full game of the Knicks the other night. As good as they've been. I have to admit that I hadn't seen a ton of Knicks basketball. But I tuned in, and it was an overtime game that they won against Atlanta, which Trae Young actually got injured in. But fortunately, it's just a minor sprain, so he'll be all right. He'll be back soon. But they look unbelievable, and I've caught some of the end of some of their games, but they look really, really good. They're really deep, and they play so much as a unit. They play so together. It's cool to watch, and they are good. Well,
I wanted to mention, I knew the Knicks were going to make it. I'm not going to say I knew the Knicks made a comeback, but I'm not going to say I was going to predict that, but I just think it was a matter of time before the Knicks became, the Knicks again. I'll be totally honest. Did not see Julius Randle being the center that the Knicks were going to build around. Did not see that.
I like it.
I love it. I think I like Julius Randle. He's a great player. I just think when I think of New York Knicks basketball, I think of Carmelo. I think of someone like LeBron going there or Steph going there.
Think of a big name. Yeah.
Big name players going there.
I like this better, though. You build around.
Whoa. But the whole thing about the Knicks, though, in the last decade is that they haven't got any big name to go there. So you're saying, in an ideal world, they would have got those guys to go?
Here's what I'm saying, because clearly you're just mistaking everything I'm saying tonight.
All right.
Here's what I'm saying.
All right. Whoa.
Here's what I'm saying. When Knick basketball was going to come back, when it was going to be good again, I envisioned a star player coming to New York.
So you envision them picking up the big name that they always missed out on.
I agree. I agree that they have not done that. They give away all their players. They could have done it with Kristaps. Nope, shipped them out. They've done it with a bunch of players. But I imagined when they came back that there would be a player, a big name player that would go to New York and change the organization.
All right, I see your point.
I did not expect someone like Julius Randle, who's historically been kind of he's just been a player that's been kept improving in the league. He wasn't always, the first option.
Right.
Didn't expect someone like that to change the whole thing around. Obviously, RJ Barrett's playing well. They got a couple other guys playing well, but I didn't see that happening.
I mean, the Knicks streak again started after they lost to the Celtics by a very close game. So again, Celtics certainly know how to play this team. They certainly know how to beat this team. And that's another thing that I want to bring up is that this team is not easy to play. Again, they beat the Lakers. Again, it's not, exactly the Lakers, but they beat the Lakers. They beat the Hawks. They beat the Hornets, who, are teams that we've had to play. We had to play the Lakers very recently, and we beat them. We're going to have to play the Hawks and the Hornets. And I think
they're winning the games they need to win.
They're winning the games that they need to win, and that helps them because you beat the Hornets, you beat the Hawks. That lifts you up in the standings because those teams are now falling down, and that's why the Knicks are now at the 4th seed. And the Celtics gotta, again, I'm just going to relate it back to the Celtics because that's what we're mainly doing here. We just got to capitalize on games that we have to win, and we have to win them all. Really, ideally. But the Celtics just got to learn that we can't gas ourselves. And I'm going to relate it to the Bruins. You can't gas yourselves even if you're having back-to-back games. You just got to know which games you got to win at the end of the day. You got to think about it smart.
Yeah, I think the craziest thing about the Knicks when I do get to watch them is it really is the exact opposite. You mentioned the Celtics. It's the exact opposite of what the Celtics do. We are playing the ball movement has gotten much better. If we've been winning lately, it's been much, much better to watch. We're moving the ball better. We're playing better defense. But at the same time, it's still a lot of ISO. You can't say it isn't. It's Jason's turn, then it's Jalen's turn, then it's Kemba's turn. Often that's how our offense goes. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's also not necessarily the best. And the Knicks just are the exact opposite. It's just they're just a team, and it's guys like Reggie Bullock and Alec Burks that you would think their careers were over are playing really well for them. You got young guys, Emmanuel Quickly, RJ Barrett, Obi Toppin. These guys are playing well. You got Julius Randle obviously being the centerpiece of it all. And not only is he's scoring and rebounding the ball like he always has his whole career, he's shooting over 40% from three at a high clip. In that game, he was like 6 of 7 from three against the Hawks the other night. That's absurd. He's also facilitating. He's playmaking. He's averaging over 6 assists. This guy's doing everything for them. They did have Mitchell Robinson go down, which sucks, but Nerlens Noel has played really well in his absence. And this team is just well-rounded. They play good D. They play together.
The question comes down to, and then I'll pass it along to Jerry. The question comes down to, Justin, is, and again, I'll compare the Knicks and the Celtics because I just feel like these are two teams that, you always look at. And I feel like I've been looking at these two teams this whole entire season because the Knicks and the Celtics have always been fighting for that top seed right now. I feel like they keep going up and down. You got to look at efficiency. I think that's the key word here entirely with this NBA Eastern Conference as well, is efficiency. Which of these teams is being most efficient? Which of these teams is moving the ball right? And you brought up the ISO situation. Which of these teams is using the talent they have in the correct way? And that's something that the Nets had to learn, and they finally did. And they're still learning it. And that's just something that every team's got to balance out. Unfortunately, the Celtics, for some reason, fell into a little bit of a slump this season and just didn't know how to efficiently handle the situation that they were given. We got some new pieces. We got Fournier and everything, and we're now trying to efficiently build around that. And that's just another thing off the top of my head that I think of, and I won't, we'll get into another point, but the whole Marcus Smart and Fournier situation. Which one is most efficient? Which one is going to benefit our team? Who's been in the system? Who knows the system? But again, my key word for just this entire year of basketball is just efficiency. Which team wants it more? Which team does it the right way?
I think it's the reason I think the Knicks are good this year is because they have a lot of players, like Justin said, that they thought their career not that they thought, but a lot of people
thought their careers were over.
Yeah. A lot of people thought their careers were over. And I think when you're not, I kind of mentioned it when I was talking about the tournament a couple weeks back, like when they got nothing to lose, I mean, that's a dangerous team. I don't think anyone on the Knicks roster views themselves as like the guy. And I think that's even like a guy like Julius Randle, because Julius Randle, let's face it, it's never been the guy. So I think when you have a team like that, like Reggie Bullock, a lot of like B-list, C-list names that are like not like that good in the league. On another roster, you might have them as like they might not even be starters. But together, they realize their role. They're just kind of another piece to the puzzle, and they make it work. I think the problem with the Celtics, and we've said this all year round, is we expect 2 or 3 guys to lead the team to a win. And when you do that, that leads to a lot of ISO ball. Not everyone gets involved. And then if they're not producing, then nothing's really happening. So, yeah, I think the reason why it's working for the Knicks is because I think no one's really expecting anything out of them. It's like Julius Randle, Reggie Bullock, Emmanuel Quickly.
I just realized I didn't even mention Derrick Rose, who's been a huge piece, a huge acquisition for them midway through the year, bringing in D Rose, especially to mentor Emmanuel Quickly, Emmanuel Quickly has been the surprise of the year for everybody. I think. I mean, he has been playing really, really well for a guy that was a late first round pick.
Definitely. But yeah, again, they're just looking to improve. I think the Celtics feel like that their ceiling is here and that they need to make something happen. And I think when that happens, like you have a lot of pressure. And I just don't think they've lived up to it this season. But whereas the Knicks, they have nothing to lose. They've historically been a poor organization. You got a guy like Julius Randle that improved a lot. RJ Barrett's still trying to prove himself. A lot of these other guys are trying to prove themselves. So I just think it's you got nothing to lose situation. So that's why you're playing well. But
I think it's really important for them to get a 4 or 5 seed as well, for the reasons we mentioned earlier in this podcast, where if you're a 6 through 8, you have to face one of those top 3 in the East in the first round, and you won't win. So I think it's really important for them to grab a 4 or 5.
It's important for the Celtics too. We need to play them.
It is.
I think the Knicks are capable of that. I think it will be interesting as the season goes on to see how competitive that gets, because
it's the Celtics, the Hawks, and the Knicks. One of them can't be the 4. One of them's gonna have to be 6. And I hope it's not the Celtics. I really do.
I'll say right now, just a quick news update. Now the Nets have solidified being the 1 seed with the Celtics losing, and that's unfortunate. Another big thing is the Celtics don't play the Hawks again, so there's no way for us to possibly knock the Hawks down. I think the Knicks do play them one more time, so the Knicks can. And another big thing is just we need to win against some big teams like the Heat, the Bulls. We need to play against those teams because those teams are even capable of trying to snag a seed from us if they win and beat us twice. It's just one of those situations. Another quick thing I want to say is that I don't want to beat the team, and we have been the team this season, where right now it is the Thunder who have a 12-game losing streak. 12-game losing streak. I don't want.
They don't have Shea anymore. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander,
but I don't want to be.
So that team is not looking good.
I don't want to be the team that loses to the Thunder, and the Thunder have a night, and they get their first win in fucking 15, 16 games. I don't want to be that team, because I'll tell you right now, if that happens, I swear to fucking God, say goodbye, sayonara. We're playing the Nets of the fucking 76, and we're getting our ass raped, just gaped open. We're just losing. We're losing, and I'm sick and tired of it. I'm fucking tired.
Dude, I tell you what, that felt like the
Sacramento Kings and the Detroit Pistons for no fucking goddamn reason.
Yeah, when we lost to the Bulls this week without Zach LaVine, it felt like that type of loss. It was like, are you fucking kidding me? I was like, it's an embarrassing loss. But
I'm just fed up with I'm just fed up with it. Like Celtics. We play against the team we play against these teams. Oh, my God, we beat the Suns. And then we go up against the Sacramento Kings, and we just go out there and just play schoolyard basketball. What the absolute fucking shit. Like, these are teams that we can beat them. You look at paper, I swear to God, if you had this as a practice squad, we'd kill their ass in practice. We'd kill their ass in a scrimmage. Like, I just don't understand what it is. And it's something that's in the locker room, and I'm not saying that there's a problem in the locker room, but I'm saying it's a motivational factor. It's not, it's not on anybody specifically. It's just Stevens, the assistant coaches, the team have to just come together towards the end of this season. That's it.
It's just the next step. We can't take that next step. Like we're literally, we've walked up the stairs a little bit. We see the door, but we can't get there. And
your dad went for milk and you can't even fucking get off your ass and get off the couch.
I just think that we're right there, but there's another step we need to take. I don't know if we need to add another guy. I think we need another big, but I don't even know if we need to add another guy or if we need to just start playing better as a team. But there's another
a little bit of both. There's
another step we need to take in order to get there. And quite honestly, I don't know about you guys, and then we should move on. Touch a little bit on NFL before we wrap up. Or if Justin's got more to say, we can go on that.
No.
But shit, I forgot what I was going to say.
There you go. And the last thing, and there it is. You wonder why your dad doesn't come back for some,
all right. I remember taking that last step.
I remember.
But it's just on everybody. Look,
I remember.
It's already getting in your head. They don't know, fucking.
I remember. So I don't know about you guys, but I'm just glad that we're now in the playoff picture. It's not really. We still got a little bit to go, but I'm glad we're in the playoff, solidified in the playoff picture now. So yeah,
1 game away from the play-in now. We're only the 6th seed. So.
I realize
the Celtics are stressing me out so much, and I got such long hair. I'm shedding because I'm so stressed. I'm fucking shedding.
Yeah, that's just for real. For us, or
I guess the only other team that I would want to talk about is just it's beyond me that the New Orleans Pelicans aren't better, because Zion is putting up ridiculous numbers, and I just, the way he dominates the game, and he's shooting over 60% from the field, like it's just ridiculous. He just feasts in the paint all night, every night, and yet they're still terrible, and they just choke every single game. They're in a lot of games and then throw them away every single time. And and my biggest problem with them is that they are well below average, but almost near bottom of the league as far as like defensive rating. They're one of the worst defenses in the league. And you're telling me a lineup of Lonzo Ball, Eric Bledsoe, Zion Williamson, Steven Adams, and Brandon Ingram shouldn't be a good defensive team? Are you kidding me? Zion has defensive player of the year potential. Steven Adams is one of the best, is a great defending big. Eric Bledsoe's been on defensive teams. Lonzo Ball is known for his good perimeter defense as a point guard. Like, why is this team? Brandon Ingram's got all the length in the world. They call him freaking Slenderman. Why is this team bad defensively? I can't imagine why that happens.
I'm just going to
say
they
let
I
up the most threes in the league. Like, what is the wrong with that?
It comes down to, again, this team's just got to mold together. Like, BI can obviously get the length and the reach, and he can just obviously get to that perimeter blocking. And I think it just comes down to it that the team has to mesh together, because you can have the perimeter blocking, you can have Zion in the paint, you can have any situation you want. You can have all these great guys and all this great talent. But again, I just don't see the Pelicans meshing this season. I don't think I saw it at all. And I just think it has to take some time. I think next season you come into it, and if they aren't meshing, they're going to have to make some changes, because clearly if it doesn't work after 2 seasons with a lineup like that, you got to get rid of somebody. And you're going to have to change up and maybe get a better shooter. I don't know what it is, because you have to produce on offense and defense. And it seems like they can produce one way and they can't do it in the second half. You know what I'm saying? In that second scenario.
Yeah. Yeah. The only way I thought they were going to be good this year is if they really leaned into having that defensive identity. And because their backcourt is Lonzo and Bledsoe, and it's not working, that backcourt is turned out terribly. That's just not working. They don't have any defensive identity, never mind that being their identity. And it's just not working. I don't know if you have any thoughts, Jay, but yeah, it's just not working.
I just think the only thing I'll add to that is I think the reason their defense is not as great as it can be is because they don't have the guy to defend the best player on an opposing team. A lot of teams have one guy that, like the Celtics, they'll go to Marcus Smart or Jason Tatum. That's the guy that you put on like a LeBron or Devin Booker when they come into town. Like, yep, you have him for the night. Don't leave him. Try to make sure he gets his least amount of touches as possible. I think the Pelicans, like you said, Justin, they've got a lot of guys that have great defensive qualities, but when it comes down to guarding a player like Devin Booker or a player like Steph Curry or anybody in that Western Conference, let alone the Eastern, I just don't think they have it. And I think that's why their defensive rating is as low as it is because they don't have the guy to defend, Steph Curry or Devin Booker or someone of that nature. So I think that's why that's my thoughts on it. But it is
a good point.
But it is admirable.
It's a hole there.
It is admirable how close they're getting. I mean, I didn't expect much from this team this year. And the numbers Zion's putting up are impressive. So, I mean, kudos to them for even staying relevant, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. I guess the last thing, before we wrap up here, is that we will move over to NFL, I guess, and talk about the Chiefs making a huge acquisition today. Really the only NFL news on the week. But after losing Eric Fisher this year, they had a huge hole in their offensive line, and they just solved it in a huge way, bringing in Orlando Brown, who's only 24 years old. He's been a Pro Bowler the last 2 years. I mean, this guy, he's the future now for their offensive line, and it's a huge piece for them to have in front of Patrick Mahomes.
I didn't like, obviously, the dropping Eric Fisher scenario because, he didn't even get the
I didn't really understand it until now. I do understand it.
And I do understand it now. I think I'm going to equate that to exactly what happened with the Pats. And it was Nate Solder. Got rid of him, went to the Giants. It was unfortunate. He'd been a veteran for us for God knows how many years. And he made the Pro Bowl a number of times. I think he had a couple good seasons, I think, off the top of my head, if I remember. If not, he had Pro Bowl-like seasons, but there were just so many good guards in that league. He was a tackle. But still, beyond the point, it's an important thing that I think the Chiefs are recognizing. You got a young Mahomes. You want a young guy who's able to move, too, especially when Mahomes is going to be a running, mobile quarterback. You need to have – that's another thing that's changing. I think we got to recognize, too. How many times now do we see that the offensive linemen got to be, they still got to be big, but they still got to be somewhat quick? I mean, Jesus Christ, we saw the what's his name that went to Tampa Bay. He could jump out of the pool and clear the whole entire thing. They got to be mobile. They got to be mobile
Tristan
and block.
Wirfs,
Yeah, they got to be mobile to block. And I think that's what the Pats did, especially when Belichick found out when he got Isaiah Wynn. You try to get a young guy who's mobile, who's fast, who's been in a good system. And getting Orlando Brown, now 2-time Pro Bowler, that's huge for them. That solidifies the line on one side. They already have a pretty good line. The line was the problem in the Super Bowl because Eric Fisher wasn't there, and I think they had another injury. That was the problem. That's the only hole in their offense that they could possibly have that I think we were looking at besides Mahomes being injured. And now that you solidify that, there's no reason Mahomes can't play Mahomes, football. He's just going to ball out, literally. And I think it's just smart on Andy Reid. I think he's just, again, that's something that I think Andy Reid was being smart about is I think a lot of teams forget. You got to have a good offensive line. Like, I would honestly, you got to protect your quarterback first. You got to have options, obviously. But with a guy like Mahomes, if you don't protect him, there's no way, again, Mahomes can get out of that pocket, but that Super Bowl we saw, if you don't protect him against a team like that Tampa Bay defense, there's no way he's going to find the options because the defense will cover those options and Mahomes will make these dazzling throws that go where? Nowhere. Right through their hands, hit their helmet, and that was the problem I think that we saw in the Super Bowl. And I'm glad that this happened, this signing. I'm fucking ranting now, but it's just
I'm glad it happened. I don't think the Chiefs are going to go into this season without replacing Eric Fisher.
It's a good.
Not expect Orlando Brown pickup, but I don't think they were going to go in.
I don't hate it.
I don't think they were going to go in without reestablishing, because that's in my hopefully all of our opinions, one of the main reasons why they lost the Super Bowl was because they did not have sufficient.
I would blame honestly about 85% of the Super Bowl loss on that, and maybe the next 10 to 15% on just coaching.
Yeah.
Nothing on Mahomes, and honestly, some of that actually was on the receivers as well. It was just offensively terrible.
Yeah. It was just offense. Yeah. So it's a little surprising about the player, but the move in general, not that surprising, because I don't think. Unless they didn't want to be competitive for some reason, which obviously,
unless they just wanted to suck.
But
you want to call it there?
We'll call it there because we
can wrap it up.
We're at the hour mark. So if you made it this far, please like and subscribe, and we appreciate it. Boys, it was nice talking to you this week.
It was an honor and a pleasure, boys.
The real boys.
Peace.